The hardest lesson to learn is that sometimes the people you love would rather watch you burn. You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my Wicked Winter series. I'm Brooke Makenna, but this is about the eye drop murder. Now this case is actually very recent, and the reason I want to do it before it's even really solved is because it intrigues me so much, because it asks the one question that just boggles my mind, and that is, what makes a person tick? What has to happen to a person to make them feel that it's okay to kill? If you didn't know, I'm posting 31 days of consecutive content for Wicked Winter in December. So if you do enjoy this kind of content or want to see more from me, please make sure you are subscribed. Now let's get back to the story. So it was July 21st of 2018 when a 64-year-old man named Stephen Duvall Clayton was found dead in his home. It was a mansion in South Carolina where he was found at the foot of the stairs face down. His wife said he had been having kind of some vertigo for the past few days, but on July 21st she found him at the bottom of the stairs. Stephen was born on May 1st of 1954 in Miami Beach, Florida. He went on to become not only the founder but the president and CEO of an entire national company called the Physical Therapy Resources. He did really well for himself, but it was said that his childhood hardships actually kept his humble personality as his success grew. He not only liked to challenge himself, but also mentor others. In 1995, he actually retired at the age of 41 to pursue his next dream of world travel. He had so many friends. It was said he had no just acquaintances, because he instantly befriended them and added them to his large circle of family. He also loved kids and was a wrestling coach at local universities where he would mentor the boys until they grew up into adulthood, and anyone he mentored became successful. He was overall a generous and loving man who was loved by so many, and his life was over far too soon. His funeral was that August, hosted by his wife at their home in Clover, and it was the exact replica of George Washington's Mount Vernon home. It was painted mint green with balconies and porches and was said to be worth nearly $830,000. When Stephen was found dead inside of it, they thought it was a pretty cut and dry cause of death, that he had stumbled down the stairs, but they ordered a toxicology report just in case. And good thing they did, because it came back with a very unusual result. You see, Stephen's body had a high amount of tetrahydrozoline, I think is how you say it, which is an active ingredient in not only nasal sprays but eye drops. And it can be, if ingested, very toxic. I mean, even just the smallest amounts can have breathing problems, induce comas, have seizures. And surprisingly, this method of murder, of poisoning with eye drops, is not just something shown in TV shows and movies. It has happened in several high-profile cases where that is the cause of death. But these detectives were already kind of looking into Stephen and his wife's relationship, so they just went ahead and went over to Lana Sue Clayton, his wife's house, anyway, to talk to her. Stephen and Lana were said to have been married for 8 years prior to this, but when they went over and confronted her with the reports and said, you know, he has been poisoned, she confessed almost immediately, not doing anything to cover up what she had done. She even said she had been poisoning him for 3 days before he died. And then that day, he finally did. She was arrested on August 31st and charged with homicide and malicious tampering with food. Stephen's friends and family were completely shocked by this, saying, "All of our friends and family know how much he loved his wife Lana and how devoted he was to her. We are all still trying to process this." You see, Lana was a 52-year-old nursing employee at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and she also went to the neighborhood Bible study. She had already had 2 kids from another man when they got married, but she was described as a very sweet lady when they did, and everyone in Stephen's life thought she was really nice. But not anymore. She said that she had been poisoning him for 3 days, and that morning she let him sleep while she went outside to mow the lawn. When she came back in, he was on the foot of the stairs, and she tried to roll him over, but he was too heavy, so she ran to the neighbor to call the police. Now at first, Lana never seemed suspicious to police, but his cause of death did, because he had no prior medical history or problems. And it didn't make sense because of his age, and they were trying to rule it something of the cardiac nature. But there was actually a lot of attention brought to Lana 2 days before she was arrested. It had nothing to do with the toxicology reports. It was August 29th at about 9:30 p.m. when her neighbors saw her acting distraught, and then she asked them if they would take care of her dogs. They ended up calling the police after finding several suicide notes from her, and when the cops got there, they went through the back door, but they smelled an overwhelming smell of fumes. They tried to go in and look around the house, but they just couldn't breathe, so they had to wait in the back porch for the firefighters to come, where they found even more suicide notes on the back deck's table. When the firefighters finally got there and turned off the gas, some detectives and firefighters went inside with oxygen masks on to search the house. They found Lana in her bed, breathing but not conscious. And 2 days later, she was arrested in her husband's murder. But they still had no clue what could be the possible motive that Lana had for doing this, because she had no criminal history. All they found was a post on Facebook from March of 2010 that could possibly be a motive in some way, and it said, "My husband is not a drunk, he had an affair. However, he is the father of my children and my kids. Look at my Facebook. I do appreciate the support though." Some believe this showed signs that Stephen was having an affair, but others say that Stephen was not her children's real father, and she was referring to her ex-husband who was. Then a report was found from May of 2016 that showed that this may have not been the first time that Lana tried to kill her husband. That morning, she walked into the police station and she admitted that she had accidentally shot her husband in the head with a crossbow. She said she was struggling to load it that morning downstairs, so she eventually grew tired and headed upstairs to go to bed. She stuck it on the nightstand and she went to get into bed. But Stephen was already laying there, and they normally slept in separate rooms. So when she noticed he was there, she got back up, she grabbed the bow, and when she was headed out, that's when she accidentally shot the bow at her husband's head. She said Stephen woke up yelling and bleeding, and she went to help him, and the police of course followed up with Stephen, who did say it was an accident and it was fine, that he didn't think that Lana was trying to kill him necessarily, and that she had sleeping problems where she would get up and sleepwalk. But one thing Lana did tell police was that her husband was mentally abusive, and that he never hit her but had very awful mood swings. But nothing really more was looked into that, and a year later the whole case was closed and it was officially ruled an accident. But when she confessed to his murder, the case was reopened to look into the relationship between the defendant and the victim. Interestingly enough, Lana was appointed executor of his multi-million-dollar estate before his death, but now his family is fighting to make sure she never gets any of that money, saying that they will not support any financial gain for someone who is actually responsible for the termination of their brother's life. Lana is in custody at the York County Jail, where she is waiting without a bond and waiting for her trial date to be set, but it looks like she could be facing the death penalty. Now, I for one really hope she testifies at this trial and tells everybody why she did it, the real reason. But what do you think? Leave it in the comments down below. And why did she feel the need to go tell the police that what she did to her husband was an accident? Was it not? Because her husband was saying it was accidental too. It wasn't like he was going to go to the police and tell them otherwise. Was the crying that she was doing to the police and telling them that he was mentally abusive a cover-up, or was this poor girl crying for help and nobody listened? It's a hard one because I don't want to victim blame Stephen because he has passed, but I also don't want to discount the fact that she said that she was being abused, because then nobody was listening to her. But I really hope this goes to trial soon so this can all hopefully be cleared up. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this story. I actually saw this on an episode on TV that was more about like how the eye drops affect your system and all of that, but the title was The Eye Drop Murder, and I was instantly intrigued. Intrigued is the weird word, I know, but we're a true crime channel, okay? we are interested in this stuff, it's okay to say that. So I'm not okay with the death. I don't want anyone to ever be murdered, but when it happens, I love to share their story. So that is why I do this. No other reason than that. But I'd love to know your thoughts on the whole thing, because I think it's such a weird thing that not only did she possibly try to kill her husband 2 years prior, but then she just did it and admitted it fully and didn't care and didn't bring back up the abuse when she was actually found to have murdered and confessed to the murder. You know, she didn't say, oh, I told you before he was abusive. She just said, yeah, I did it, I killed him. And it was just like, okay, why? But I did find a Facebook status that she wrote before all of this, and it's just a nice quote, but hearing it and then hearing what she did makes it even creepier. She wrote, "Life is not a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty well-preserved body, but rather a skid and broadside, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming to the Lord, wow, what a ride." And that sounds completely innocent enough until you know what she did. So I'm sorry if today's video was a little bit of a shorter one, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. And there will be another video tomorrow, don't you worry, your pretty little heads. So yeah, make sure you are subscribed with the post notifications on so you don't miss it, because there is going to be so much content. I don't want you guys to miss out or to, you know, get so backed up that you're so overwhelmed with it. So yeah, and make sure to thumbs up if you do like my videos, because it just lets me know that you enjoy them and I'm not just talking to myself. So yeah, don't ever forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.
Why do evil people have to exist? And don't tell me it's for balance.